BBC Radio.
6 Music.
You are now entering parallel universe. And wipe your feet on the way in.
Mark Riley, BBC 6 Music.
Every tongue got to stop them crazy horses on the run. What a show that they go smoking up the sky, yeah. Crazy horses all got riders and they're you and I. Crazy horses. Crazy horses. Never stop and they never die. They just keep on pumping how they multiply. Crazy horses, will they never halt? If they keep on moving, then it's all our fault. What a show, there they go, smoking up the sky, yeah. Crazy horses all got riders and they're you and I. So take a good look around, see what they've done, what they've done, they've done, they've done. Crazy horses. Crazy horses.
The Osmonds and Crazy Horses, Mark Riley. I'm honoured. We are honoured. We're all honoured because normally Mr. Bobby Hughes is in Yorkshire, in his hometown of, I can't say because the paparazzi will follow you.
Thank you.
But you're here with us tonight, aren't you, Bobby?
I am. I've made the effort. Well, it's the last PU, so why not? I've got to be here.
Absolutely, mate. Great to see you.
Right, okay, likewise. Do you know what? 19 years, who would have thought? I remember doing the first one and then going home and saying to Jane, I can't do this. We were kind of talking over each other, or I was talking over you. Loads of kind of gaps in it. It just wasn't really working, and here we are.
It worked from word go for me, Bob, to be honest. I mean, yeah, it was great. I mean, the great thing is, at the risk of getting all nostalgic, that you used to listen to Mark Radcliffe and myself on the afternoon. You used to take part all the time in the Cheesily Cheerful Chart Challenge, Timply Bob. And then, just as luck would have it, I didn't know you, though I knew that you lived in Timply, because you're Bob from Timply. And then you ended up winning that David Bowie Guy Pilat sign print, and I thought, well, I'm not sticking that in the post. He lives in Timply. So we met in the pub. I found out you were a journalist. I don't know, maybe a year later or something. I thought, right, okay, I've been kicked off 6 Radio 1, going to 6 Music, and I've got this idea, and who can I use? And you sprung to mind. And here we are all this time later, mate, and it's been an absolute joy, I tell you. And it's not over, is it? I mean, we're going to continue working together, but not on 6 Music.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, feelings mutual. So I thought we started, I think, with 1972 or 73 back in 2004. So I thought we'd kind of revisit that. We'd go out that way. So we'll look at the New Musical Express, as it was then known, 27th of May 1972. I'll play Crazy Horses for Jane and for Charlie and for Ollie as well. The Osmonds have won more gold discs, it says, in America during the past year than any other artist or group during a similar 12-month period. A total of 10 gold discs beats the previous record of the Beatles, while Elvis only collected 8. Meanwhile, Keith Altham gets invited to a Hughes press bash for the Osmonds at the Churchill Hotel in London. The band are doing interviews in pre-arranged slots. They're massive in America, but they're just about to break over here with Crazy Horses.
They were found by, was it Andy Williams who found them?
It was Andy Williams, yeah, absolutely. Anyway, eventually, after what seems like hours, Keith gets an audience. He says, I wound up in an interview room with the group's superstar. Donny Osmond looks like the definitive teenage idol, but is extremely pleasant and bright. I asked him if the selling of his face and some of the falseness which inevitably surrounds his marketing did not bother him. He thought carefully for a few moments, smiled, and then said, "Sorry, I don't understand the question."
It's funny, isn't it? Because they did wring it dry, because obviously the Osmond brothers, and they did play their instruments and all that,
Yeah.
so, respect is definitely due, and that is a truly great tune. But then, of course, he introduced Little Jimmy, which was a bit kind of, it did strip the enamel off your teeth, that tune, didn't it?
It did, really.
And not only that, then they also paired Donny up with his sister Marie, so they were every permutation of the Osmond family in there, weren't they?
They diluted it, didn't they?
They did.
They did. On a similar tip, I suppose, the Partridge Family will return to British TV in the autumn for another 13-week run. This follows a march on BBC Television Centre by more than 1,000 teenagers who are demanding the return of the series. They were given the assurance that the corporation is acquiring a further batch of shows. So, not generally known, but it did start on the BBC and it was a flop, wasn't it? And so it got switched. ITV bought the rights and I think they shoved it on. Was it like a Saturday afternoon or... Obviously a very sort of, child-friendly slot.
Right.
And it suddenly really took off. And, of course, David Cassidy became a superstar in his own right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember one of my first crushes was Susan Day.
Oh, yes.
In it, and I would have been about 7 or 8, and she was a lot older than me, so it was never meant to be. But of course, then I met Trace, and so that was it.
Yeah, who cares about Susan?
Who cares, mate? Who cares?
Exactly.
Who is she anyway?
Tickets for T-Rex's 7 concerts next month sold out on Saturday within hours of the box office's opening at 10:30 a.m. in Manchester, for example. Ahead of the Bellevue concert, a queue began to form at lunchtime on Friday. In Newcastle, 25 police were needed to control the crowds. Marc Bolan returned to London at the weekend after spending several days on Ringo's yacht in the south of France. They've been together writing and filming further sequences for Ringo's documentary film on T-Rex, which of course was Born to Boogie. And they needn't really have bothered doing the sequences, should they?
Well, I mean, so the footage from Wembley is just brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is because it was Beatlemania, and they were the biggest band since the Beatles, probably for the teeny boppers anyway. And it was called T-Rextasy, wasn't it?
It was.
That was the phrase that everybody used, and so it's captured brilliantly on Ringo Starr's footage from Wembley. But all that stuff going up and down the runway, the disused runway in an open top car with the top hat on, it's a
kind of 60s leftover, wasn't it? That sort of slightly surreal, nonsensical passages. I
mean, it's funny actually, because if you think about Marc Bolan's lyrics, they're usually silly and nonsensical, aren't they? I mean, he did write some of the worst words ever, but they were in the greatest pop songs.
Absolutely, yeah, in context. Just next to that, more big names have been booked for the summer season of weekend rock gigs at London's King Cross Cinema. Edgar Broughton Band appears on the 30th of June, goes on to say Rory Gallagher. Mott the Hoople top the bill, August the 12th. The first 6 shows are then listed, so it's got people like Michael Chapman, Hawkwind, MC5 and Third Ear Band, but no mention here at all, I'm guessing because they weren't even booked at this point, of the 2 historic gigs that happened, mid-July this summer, wasn't it, 72? So you had Lou Reed and, of course, Iggy and the Stooges, one night after the other.
Yeah, legendary. And Bowie was playing somewhere like Aylesbury Friars, wasn't he? And he legged it back to watch Iggy playing that particular gig. But also, it's great, isn't it, if you think about it. Again, just getting a little bit nostalgic. But you got Michael Chapman and Hawkwind from this particular paper, 1972, you say? Yeah. And they've both been in session for us.
Absolutely,
mind-blowing.
Longevity. Also in the news, Stone the Crows expected to return to the concert platform at the Lincoln Festival on Saturday. The first appearance since, following the death of guitarist Les Harvey, who was electrocuted on stage at the beginning of the month. I mean, that seems so soon, doesn't it? After much deliberation, the group's decided to continue, but it's not yet known who's going to replace him in the lineup. It's being rumoured that either ex-Fleetwood Mac leader Peter Green or Eric Clapton will join the Crows at Lincoln. I did a bit of research here, mate.
Go on, Bob.
So it turned out to be neither of them. It was Steve Howe of Yes joined in with John Anderson on backing vocals.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And of course, Les Harvey, Alex Harvey's brother, wasn't
Indeed,
he?
yeah. And talking of which, on the same theme, the Great Western Festival preview, NME goes through all the big acts, and then Tony Tyler gets to the newcomers. He said, the people to watch out for this weekend are an outfit called Roxy Music. They come from those same people who brought you King Crimson at Hyde Park in '68. They're so adventurous in their approach. Their first album yet to be released was produced by Crimson's Peter Sinfield, and they battle even themselves on occasion. To describe their music is difficult. Their hearts are in the 40s with overtones of 50s rock and strong overtones of 60s electronic eclecticism. I shouldn't really say too much because a large amount of their appeal is on Initial Impact. I just hope you feel the same as I do.
That is brilliant.
It is.
So incisive. That's exactly Roxy music. You couldn't write it any better than that, could you?
It's
really?
exactly it. It's recycling culture's past, isn't it? That's exactly what it is. New singles, review by Danny Holloway, feels the need to apologise for last week's review of The Sweets' Little Willie. He says, I've been told that my review last week incorrectly insinuated this song is rude. The group's representative claims that Mama chased Willie down through the hall and not hole, as I'd previously stated. I personally don't care where she chased him because this song rubbed me up the wrong way anyway. It's only one way.
It rubbed me up the wrong way anyway. That's the other bit of writing was great, Bob. That takes a biscuit, definitely.
It does. Anyway, we're not going there, are we? You don't
No,
think?
we're going here.
Last night, I was feeling something wasn't right. There was not another soul in sight. Only you, only you. So we walked alone, though I knew that there was something wrong, and a feeling that feels so strong about you. Then you gazed up at me, and the answer was plain to see, 'cause I saw the light in your eyes, in your eyes. So we had our fling. I just never would suspect a thing, till that little bell began to ring in my head, in my head. But I tried to run, though I knew it wouldn't help me none, 'cause I couldn't never love no one. So I said, but my feelings for you were just something I never knew, till I saw the light in your eyes, in your But I love you best. It's not something that I say in jest, 'cause you're different though from all the rest. In my eyes, and I ran out before, but I won't do it anymore. Can't you see the light in my eyes, in my eyes, in my eyes?
Simply one of the greatest pop tunes ever, but every single instrument played by Todd Rundgren, written by Todd Rundgren, produced by Todd Rundgren, makes you ill, doesn't it, mate?
The whole works, yeah. Some kind of genius, I think he was, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll look at the NME here, 27th of May 1972. And the news, Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page has discovered a new monster at Loch Ness, the dreaded electricity pylons.
Oh.
Page owns Boleskine House on the shores of the loch, the perfect pad to get away from it all. But the North of Scotland Hydroelectric Board wants to string electricity cables over his land and stick a pylon on it. Page's objection, amongst others, has forced a public inquiry at Inverness. Page has suggested an alternative. Put the cables underground, he says.
Listen, hasn't he got... well, he seems to have a lot of bad luck in this film, because he's got a house in London. I seem to remember that story. And is it Robbie Williams?
Robbie Williams next door. Did he complain about the noise?
I think like Robbie wanted to build a swimming pool or something or other, but there was, it was the neighbours at war.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would have made an interesting programme, wouldn't it? It's not like, it's the tall trees, in it, that people start arguing over. But if it's Robbie Williams and Jimmy Page about a swimming pool, I'd watch that one.
Celebrity Neighbours at War, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Anyway, it says here we'll keep you posted on developments. Of course, got to mention that was previously home to Alistair Crowley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Dr. John, interviewed by Keith Altham here. It's a good setup. He says when he's on his current tour, the good doctor, real name Matt Rabenek, was ensconced within the confines of a London hotel known as the White House. When I went to see him, he invited me up to his room via the house phone and hid in the toilet for several minutes before making an entrance. He was dressed in jeans, multi-patched leather jerkin and had a broad silk scarf tied around around his forehead. Wooden earrings dangled from his lobes, and he was wearing a hideous pair of striped green, red and yellow socks.
When he says hiding in the kitchen, how does he know he wasn't dropping the kids off?
Well... Possibly, but he didn't mention that in the article. You'd think he would, wouldn't you?
You would think so.
Yeah, very possibly doing that. But anyway, not sure. Anyway, he talks about all sorts of stuff, including, how the origins of funk began in New Orleans, being good mates with Mick Jagger, showing him around the blues clubs, playing on stage with Chuck Berry in LA. He says it was so awful that eventually I just got up from the piano and walked off.
Right.
Plus this, he says, I worked for a while with Alice Cooper in the States. His theatrics are really great and his music is bloody awful. If I could get an act like that going, I'd use it until I wore it out. One gig, I bought a baby grass snake just as a joke to upstage him during my act. His manager came screaming into my dressing room in Vegas yelling, "You can't use a snake. Nobody uses snakes but Alice."
Well, it's a fair point. And also, I have to say, if given the choice of listening to Alice Cooper or Dr. John, I would definitely listen to Alice Cooper all day long.
Well,
just saying. Personally.
Fair enough. No, fair enough. Album review. Stevie Wonder's Music of My Mind by Roy Carr. So this will do more for Stevie Wonder than the image of the slightly stagnating Motown sound than anything else released in the next few years. Under his own motivation, Wonder has conceived and produced an album which will elevate him from the finger-popping singer of hit singles to multi-talented performer of consummate artistry. He wasn't wrong there either. Talking to Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
21, he's come of age in more ways than one. And Tony Stewart reviews Obscured by Clouds by Pink Floyd, which is a soundtrack, isn't it, for a French film, is it?
Yeah.
Sid Barrett left Floyd some years ago, but his writing style could have influenced this new set greatly. It's melodic, even to the point of unabashed commercialism. Floyd come out as a rock band of some great appeal. This should turn many people onto their music. There are no splendid grand musical epics, just songs, and beautiful ones at that. Also, it's an interim release because I believe they're now going in to record Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, and the rest is history.
Other albums out and singles, including Sly and the Family Stone.
Hey, which we will be doing in a short while, won't we, Bob?
We will indeed, mate. NME, 27th of May 1972. Here's some gigs this week. You've got Grateful Dead and New Riders of the Purple Sage at the Lyceum on the Strand. Desmond Decker and the Aces at the Mecca Locarno in Blackpool. UFO supported by Roxy Music at the Marquee. Free admission with his advert, it says.
Different UFO.
Do you think? It's got to be, is it?
It's got to be, surely. You're thinking of Pete Way and all that line, yeah. Maybe.
Possibly. Muddy Waters and his band at Digbeth Civic Hall. You've got at Epsom Evesham Hall, David Bowie in concert with DJ Bob Harris. So this was May 72, so just before Ziggy Mania really kicked off, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
He was still working it. Uriah Heep at Oxford Town Hall, Lulu and Pan's People at Star Time at the Country Ground in Swindon, Genesis at Penzance Winter Gardens. It says here, as has been stated before in this piece, Genesis are an original, excellent and accomplished band. They make friends at every gig. Be a friend of Genesis today. Obviously touting for audience.
Yes, sounds like it.
Slade and Status Quo at the Orchid in Purley, the Kinks at Maidstone Art College, Trees at the Wake Arms in Epping, Faces and Badfinger at London Coliseum, and the Great Western Express Festival in Lincoln. Sly and the Family Stone, the Beach Boys, Slade, Monty Python, Lindisfarne, Joe Cocker, Humble Pie, the Straubs, Ry Cooder and the Faces.
What a bill.
Not bad at all, is it? And Brixton Burt at the Black Horse in Telham.
Excellent stuff.
So, obviously, 72, certain stuff you would find in the classifieds. You've got the usual stuff here, like Loon Pants, $1.99, cheesecloth smocks, wooden clogs, $5.99, safari jackets, embroidered scoop neck tops, but also, on page 50 here, leatherwear, exciting and new design in leather, briefs with thong. I mean, I've passed it over to you. I just ran my finger over it before, but I just wondered if you, what you make of this. Lace open sides with front rear zipper, $4.95. Why would you need that?
They look very complicated to me, mate. I can't imagine having been out, and now I say drink responsibly, but having had 8 pints and negotiating them would have been troublesome. So I'll stick with me wife front if you don't mind, mate.
Fair enough.
I tell you what I do love here also, gladiator armbands.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Just what everybody needs. Yes.
Oh, wonderful stuff. On the live front, you've got the Beach Boys playing, where are they playing? Oh, in Birmingham somewhere. Martin Lewis goes to see him. He says, at first sight, the Beach Boys and Birmingham seem a paradox. Certainly the Mecca Ballroom in which they appeared on Thursday was on a different plane. The gents' loo there was called the Stag Room and contained more mirrors per square inch of mural than imaginable. Apparently the Midland Mail likes three-dimensional reflections of his ablutions, it says. That's the first paragraph. What kind of review is this?
Yeah, top that.
The Southern Californian Mail, though, is into something a hell of a lot more edifying. I'd never been convinced by the Beach Boys' validity as a live act, but they stunned me on Thursday and proved their strength beyond a doubt.
Right.
Time for a quick letter.
Yeah, for sure, mate.
This is from, well, say in a minute. With the Bickershaw Festival finally proving beyond doubt that no such festival can possibly make money, would it not be a good idea to move the festivals indoors? For example, they could easily be staged in many football grounds up and down the country. I'm sure that many football clubs would be only too willing to oblige during the next few months. From Ian Ross in Leeds. Well, I'm not being pedantic here, but football grounds are outdoors. I get it, the kind of terraces are kind of roofed.
Yeah, I must have been coming at that particularly from, everybody knows, and it's the old cliche about Glastonbury. Well, it was 2004 maybe when it was an absolute washout.
Yeah.
But the Bickershaw Festival was even worse, wasn't it? Because at least Glastonbury, even then, back in the day, like going back nearly 20 years, it had all the infrastructure. But Bickershaw was an absolute mudslide, wasn't it?
It was a mud bath, and also really bitingly cold. So a lot of the bands who played there, especially visiting bands like Dr. John and Grateful Dead, just complained that they were really, really freezing so bad they couldn't wait to get off stage. It was so bad,
Yeah, Jeremy Beadle, promoter, as we know.
Yeah, absolutely. And just very quickly on the teasers, horror movie star Christopher Lee delights in visiting those cinemas, showing his eerie epics. Then during the interval, tapping the shoulder of the person in front with his teeth bared and murmuring, "Good evening." The look of astonishment in the eye of the beholder has to be seen to be believed. Didn't, what's his face do that? Didn't Anthony Hopkins do that during the Hannibal films? I'm sure he used to do that, didn't he?
Right,
Creep
okay.
up on people.
We know, having done the A to Z of David Bowie, that David Bowie and Christopher Lee did discuss making an album together, didn't they?
Oh, can you imagine that? I did interview Christopher Lee, so obviously some time ago, but he was talking, because he did like some really heavy metal records, didn't he?
Yeah.
Symphonic metal it was.
Yeah, it was like Meatloaf.
It was.
Anyway. Now we have got to go, and we said all the thank yous. I hope we got everybody in there, but just to everybody out there listening to us, we absolutely love you. You've just been amazing, okay? And so we're going to leave the last Parallel Universe 4/6 music with Lou Reed. I can't stand it. And just take care, everybody, and see you on the other side, the 5th of June. That will be, Riley and Co. In Studio SO3, I believe. All right, you take care. Ta-ta.
It's hard being a man, living in a garbage pail. My landlady called me up. Ooh, she tried to hit me with a mop. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. Oh, I can't stand it anymore, Mom. But if Candy would just come back, it'd be alright. Yeah, if Candy would just come back here, it'd be alright. Come on, baby. I live with 13 dead cats, a purple dog that with spats. They're all I living in a hall, and I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. But if Candy should just come back, it'd be alright. Woo! If Candy would just come back, it'd be alright. Be alright now. Oh, come on, baby. I'm tired of living all alone. Yeah, nobody ever calls me on the phone. But when things start getting better, I just play my music louder. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. I can't stand it anymore, Mom. I can't stand it. 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 No, I can't stand it. I can't.
Prepare to exit the parallel universe.
Mark Riley, BBC 6 Music.
And shut the door on your way out.